couple of nights ago, me and my wife were on the couch. We were eating dinner and I saw a new HBO show. I actually saw a new HBO show and a new Netflix show. And I said, babe, let's start watching one of these new shows. And my wife said something that completely triggered me to record this video. She said, I just don't know if I'm in the mood to commit to a TV show. She used the word commitment and a TV show together. And I thought to myself, man, life is full of commitments. Ministry is full of commitments. Leadership is full of commitments. Are you gonna commit to going to every kid's basketball game? Are you gonna commit to not gossiping? Are you gonna commit to being a phenomenal communicator? At the end of the day, there's only a limited amount of things that you can commit to. And I started to think back over the decade that I spent in youth ministry, and I jotted down 5 things that I committed to. And looking back over 10 years of youth ministry, I don't regret these commitments at all. And in this video, in today's video, we're gonna get into the 5 commitments that I think you'll never regret. Let's go. All right, family, these are the 5 commitments that I made early on. I probably made these commitments when I was like 21, 22 years old. Now I'm 33. And after a decade of ministry, and a decade specifically in youth ministry, these are commitments that I don't regret at all. These are not like the TV show that I start watching and I go, I don't know if anybody's ever committed to a book or committed to dinner with someone. And then you thought to yourself, oh man, why did I commit to doing this? I know that buyer's remorse is a thing, right? You buy something and you're mad that you bought it. Commitment remorse is also a thing. Like, why did I commit to going to this 15th school play? Like, I do not want to be here. I've never had commitment remorse when it comes to these 5 things. So let's get into it. Number 1, early on, I made a commitment to discipleship. I made a commitment to discipling people. Every single week, we did a thing called Wing Night. It was on Monday nights, and I invited all the guys that were serving in the youth ministry. And I sat there for hours and hours and hours. And once a month, I just invited what I called the starting 5. There have been times in previous YouTube videos or on Instagram where I've gone on rants talking about the difference between preachers and pastors and how my dominant gift was preaching. That is very true. So I knew that Jesus had a capacity to disciple 12. I knew that I only had a capacity to disciple 5. So I committed to that capacity. So pastoring people is not my dominant gift. It's not my strongest gift, but I could do something. And I knew that I could commit to Wing Night every Monday night. And one of those Mondays out of the month, it was just the 5 guys that I was personally discipling. But what I knew I could commit to was doing my devotions every single day and challenging others to do the same thing. Whenever someone said, hey, I'd really love for you to disciple me, I used to always say back, all right, meet me at 6 a.m. at Starbucks every Tuesday. Now, I was already going to Starbucks at 6 a.m. every single Tuesday. And I remember Jesse Summers and Anthony Lewis, like I remember saying that to them. And I remember getting to Starbucks on a Tuesday at 6 a.m. and there they were. I was shocked. Saying 6 a.m. to somebody is a great way to weed out the people who are really trying to waste your time. So I always gave discipleship times at inconvenient times, because if you really want to be discipled, you're not in it for convenience. And so I always wanted to test whether or not people really wanted to be discipled or whether they just wanted me to be their friend. And I had no interest in being anyone's friend. I did have an interest in being people's pastor. When we talk about discipleship, the big question that I always ask is, are you providing something that is more significant than what a small group leader can provide? Small group leaders can provide relationship and connection and family, but pastors should be able to provide wisdom, words of knowledge, counsel, advice, a biblical way to see challenges and the world, prophetic insight onto what a person should do with their life. And so I made a commitment to discipleship. And to be completely honest, I was, in terms of emotional response, I get more emotional talking about those 5 guys that I discipled than I'll ever be regarding like a sermon that I preached. Man, I'm really impacted like emotionally when people tell me that they've been impacted by a message that I preached or a sermon that I wrote. But nothing impacts me more than one of those 5 guys: Jeff Sullivan, Sam Perkins, Anthony Lewis, Justin Reed, and Jesse Summers. I personally discipled those 5 men. And nothing makes me happier when one of those 5 men reaches out and they like tell me something that I said to them in the time that I was discipling them. I made a commitment to discipleship. And so don't think that just because you have a low capacity that that's no capacity. I have a very low capacity for discipling people, but I wanted to make the most of the 5 men that I did disciple. And so I made a commitment to discipleship, and I will never regret that decision. At the end of the day, I love being productive. I measure, sometimes, it's not good, but sometimes I measure my self-worth on my production or my productivity. But the reality is this: reproduction matters more than production. Reproduction matters more than production. And me committing to reproduce the character of Christ in other people is a decision I'll never regret. So I made a commitment to discipleship. I'll never regret it. Number 2, I made a commitment to my pastor's vision. If you're in any support ministries, any auxiliary ministries, young adult ministry or women's ministry or men's ministry or youth ministry or children's ministry, one of the best commitments you can make is a commitment to your pastor's vision. God is always going to meet your pastor at your pastor's level of faith. One of the things that I had to realize is that if my pastor doesn't have faith for something, it's silly for me to have faith for that, because at the end of the day, that God is meeting the organization at the level of my senior pastor's faith, not my faith. I could have faith that this high school down the street, that every single teenager is going to come to know Jesus, but if my senior pastor doesn't have a heart for outreach, then I'm really wasting my time. If I have a heart for outreach and my pastor doesn't, I should honestly be at a different church anyway. If my pastor has faith that every single tithe-paying member's kid is going to be saved, then that is exactly what I should be having faith for, because I have to make a commitment to my senior pastor's vision. There's so many decisions that I would have made differently and I had a commitment to my vision. I've seen so many youth pastors that say things like, if my pastor would just get behind my vision. And I think to myself, you are a crazy person. You don't have a vision. God gives vision to your pastor for where the entire church should be going. If your senior pastor has a vision for outreach, then you should have a vision for outreach. You should commit to that vision. If your senior pastor has a vision that all the kids in the youth group are going to love pizza, then you should probably hurry up and start serving pizza, because that's your senior pastor's vision. If my senior pastor didn't think it was a good idea, I simply didn't do it. Because I know a lot of youth pastors that have wasted a lot of time trying to prove their pastor wrong. My pastor doesn't think we should do a tailgate before service, but I think we do. And so I'm going to prove my senior pastor wrong. I'm sorry, but that's just a terrible heart, terrible motivation. You shouldn't be doing things to try to prove your senior pastor wrong. I'll show him, no, that's just not the heart to have. You want to make a commitment to your senior pastor's vision. Last thing I'll say about this: you want to work hard to agree with your senior pastor so that you're not constantly having to submit. If you work for someone that you agree with, then that means you're not going to have to submit a whole lot, because submission only happens when there's a lack of agreement. Submission only happens when there's a lack of agreement. If you and I were going out for lunch and we agreed on where we both wanted to go, neither of us would have to submit to the other person's preferences. But the moment there's a lack of agreement, that's where submission has to come in. If you wanted to go to a deli shop and I wanted to go get chicken and waffles, one of us would have to submit to the other person's preferences, because there's disagreement. But when there's agreement, that means nobody has to submit. I think that the interview process and the job hiring process is the time to figure out, Can I agree with this senior pastor's vision? And if I can't agree, then man, I'm going to waste a lot of time trying to get him or her to agree with me and trying to submit. And that's just very difficult. Waste a lot of energy. You want to be in relationships where there's chemistry, where there's divine agreement. And so I always say, commit to your pastor's vision. And if that's impossible, then leave. That's right. You heard that right. If it's impossible to commit to your pastor's vision, leave, because you're going to do more damage than good. You are going to disagree. You're going to become a toxic person, and you may as well do the organization a favor and part ways. All right. I made a commitment to emotional and mental maturity and health. Oh boy. I think a lot of times in church, we call things spiritually mature that aren't actually spiritually mature. One of the biggest lessons I've learned, that it is impossible to be spiritually mature yet emotionally immature. And there's a lot of people who are really emotionally immature, but church gives them a space to be spiritually mature. And they think speaking in tongues or, all night of prayer, or they think spiritual activity is going to make them mature. But really, Jesus says, hey, it's great that you're doing all these spiritual things, but I want you to forgive, right? That's emotionally difficult. I want you to get into counseling. I want you to get a therapist. I want you to grieve in a way that's healthy. And one of the biggest ways that you know whether or not you're emotionally healthy is whether you have boundaries. One of the biggest commitments I ever made was creating boundaries. Boundaries between me and the leaders that served in my ministry. I know a lot of people who it's almost like as shepherds, they start becoming friends with sheep, and then the sheep lose respect for them. And that's a sad day, because you need the people who follow you to like you. But more than that, you need them to respect you, to honor you. And I think that if boundary lines get crossed, you're robbing them of a pastor by giving them a friend. They don't need a friend. They need a pastor. They need someone who they can really look up to, emulate. Last thing. Not the last thing. Sorry. It's the last thing about this commitment. I made a commitment to date my wife. I made a commitment to guard my marriage. I made a commitment not to gossip to my wife. That's right. You heard that right. It is possible to gossip to your wife. I made a commitment that if a decision got made that I wasn't necessarily, happy about, I wasn't going to go home and complain to my wife, because my wife has to go to church on Sunday and love these people. It's hard for my wife to love these people if she feels like Deacon Joe disrespected me in a staff meeting, or if the executive pastor did something that was, not necessarily fair towards me. And so I made a commitment to have healthy boundaries. I made a commitment to be emotionally and mentally mature / healthy. Emotionally and mentally mature / healthy. It's a commitment that I will never regret. Number 4, I made a commitment to working hard. I made a commitment that I was going to be a disciplined person. I've got this sign up here in my office, and it says, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Really early on in ministry, my pastor told me that I was gifted. And I was like super flattered when he told me that I was gifted. I was like, man, he said, you're a gifted communicator. He said, the thing that makes Michael Jordan different than anybody else in the NBA is that his discipline, his work ethic matches his level of gift. He said there's a lot of people like Shaq, like Dwight Howard, who are super, super gifted, but just get out of shape in the off season. They don't work hard. They're just not that disciplined. Super gifted, not disciplined. Gifted with incredible stature, gifted with height, gifted with an ability to jump out of the gym, physical prowess, but not the kind of discipline that can really support that kind of gift. And then there are people like Larry Bird, not really gifted, can't really jump high, can't run fast, but the kind of work ethic that money can't buy. And Larry Bird or Shaq, two extremes, Michael Jordan, is the perfect combination. He's equally as gifted as he is disciplined. My pastor said, you're a gifted communicator. But if you don't commit to working hard, if you don't commit to discipline, then, man, your gift is going to take you someplace that your discipline can't keep you. Your gift will take you someplace that your discipline can't keep you. So I made a commitment that I was going to work hard. I made a commitment that I was going to read, at least 12 books a year. I made a commitment that I was going to do a master's degree program and a doctoral program. I made a commitment that I was going to buy a home. I made a commitment that I'd provide for my family. I made commitments that require discipline. And I will never regret that. I'll never regret working hard. I'll never regret putting in the work, knowing that, man, laziness is a sign of your character. And I don't think anyone can ever call me lazy or say that I'm just getting by on my gift. Number 5, this is the 5th commitment that I made. It was a commitment to excellence. A commitment to excellence. A commitment that the small things would matter. And I mean excellence in how the youth facility looked and smelled. Excellence in terms of the worship team and whether or not they're actually hitting notes. Excellence in my preaching. Excellence in just being a detail-oriented leader. God is a God of excellence. And our sloppiness and our laziness and our inability to really nail excellence doesn't glorify God, and it doesn't make non-believers impressed with anything that we're doing. Broadway is excellent. The NBA is excellent. There's so many things that the world provides or offers that is excellent. And it's really sad when people come into the church and it's just like, yeah, this is just thrown together. And I watched a full Beyonce concert, and Beyonce is performing for herself. And she has such a spirit of excellence, even though nothing that she's doing has eternal value. Every single Sunday or every single Wednesday, we are doing something that has eternal value. Why not package this product in excellence? You got to do everything with excellence. So a commitment to discipleship, a commitment to your pastor's vision, a commitment to emotional and mental maturity / health, a commitment to working hard, and a commitment to excellence. These are commitments I'll never regret. These commitments have gotten me through the last decade of ministry. These commitments are convictions. And the way you know you have a conviction is when it's inconvenient to carry out that conviction. These commitments, man, I'm committed to this stuff come hell or high water, ups and downs, hills and valleys, through thick and thin. I am committed to discipling people. I'm committed to my pastor's vision. I'll always have a pastor. Even if one day I'm a senior pastor, I'll still have a pastor. I'm committed. Or even submitted. Like I'm just submitted to somebody else's authority. I'm not so arrogant that I can't lay down my opinion and agree with somebody else. I'm committed to emotional and mental maturity, because if I fail in that commitment, I fail as a husband. I'm committed to being emotionally mature, emotionally healthy, mentally mature, mentally healthy. I'm committed to seeing a therapist. I'm committed to my mental health. That is very, very important. If I start feeling depressed, or if I start feeling lonely, if I start feeling like something is off emotionally, I owe it to my wife to communicate that to her. I owe it to my pastor to ask for a Sabbath. I owe it to me to be emotionally and mentally whole, to not be imbalanced. And I've got a commitment to working hard. I've got a commitment. I feel like if I'm gifted, then I should honor that gift with an equal amount of discipline. And I've made a commitment to excellence. Excellence in everything that I do. Excellence in the way that I dress. Excellence in the way that I carry myself. Excellence in the way that I communicate on a YouTube video. Excellence in a sermon. Excellence. There's just a standard of excellence that honors God and brings glory to Him. And I want everything that I do. I want non-believers, unbelievers. I want people to see the level of excellence that happens in the church and be attracted to God because of it. So those 5 commitments have served me well the past decade, and I'm not getting rid of them. I'm gonna commit I'm gonna re-up on these 5 commitments, and I'm gonna keep these for the next decade of ministry. And I hope that I've inspired you to do the same. If this YouTube channel has been helpful in any way, even if this video has added value, I'd love for you to leave a comment. Would love for you to engage with the channel. I would love for you to share this video with somebody else. And how about you subscribe to the channel? Turn that notification bell on so that you can know when we drop new content. Till next time, family, peace.